Well, hey everybody, Wes McDonald here, and I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of TigerTube. And if you can't see us, that means you're listening to us in Tiger Paw Radio. So thank you very much for listening in. Really super excited today. I have a guest who I've known for a ton of years, probably most of my years in the Office Equipment channel. And he's been both a mentor and a partner and just doing some very exciting things right now. So Greg VanDeWalker, I cannot thank you enough for joining us on the program today.
Wes, thanks so much for having me. Again, we've known each other for a very long time, and always enjoyed my interactions with you, whether personal or professional. So it's a joy and an honor to be back with you again, my friend.
Well, right back at you, brother. And the reason I got you on today is because this changing world that we're living in, a lot of things that you were kind of doing early on in the space have come to fruition, if you will, right? That some of the things that were very groundbreaking at the time, and we'll get into that a little bit in the questions. But really just to talk about where we're at in the world as far as the Office Equipment channel and some of the exciting things that are happening for dealers as well, right?
Sure.
But as always, not everyone that's watching this knows who you are. And as is my habit, I like to let my guests introduce themselves. So Greg VanDeWalker, if you could give a little intro for our audience.
I'd be happy to. So I've been in the leasing business for a very long time. Out of college, I was a tax accountant. That didn't work out all that well. So I did that for about 3 years. And one of the partners said, he goes, you remind me of somebody that used to work here. And he gave me his name. And this guy was in equipment leasing. I had no idea what it was. That was 1991. Got into equipment leasing and really have loved that industry and have learned so much, whether it's been in the copier channel, the IT channel, or wherever. So, professionally, I'm a long-term finance guy. It's coming up to about 10 years ago, Great America decided to really focus its efforts on financing IT gear, working with MSPs and VARs. So I left the copier channel at Great America, went and just dove into IT. Well, along with that, along the way, and we'll get into this, Great America started a company called Collaborants. And about 5 years ago, I took that responsibility on as well. And so I've really been in the IT channel for a very long time. And, we're going to get into some of the things that I think the copier channel can benefit from and learn from as we further our discussion a little bit.
Well, that's great. And yeah, I can remember those early days when you'd moved over to Collaborants because, Great America was one of those companies for me that really taught me that what you can do and what you should do for your customers is much more than just about a rate, right? That the kinds of educational programs that you've done for your customers, the kind of local charities that you support, the way that you work with the dealer community was never as simple as, a leasing rate, right? Or a finance program. And so a very progressive organization. And when I saw you move over to the Collaborant side, I was very intrigued at that time because quite honestly, there were maybe whispers of things changing, like print volumes were in slight decline, but there was no real impetus for people, to make that change early on. And yet you did that, right? So long before it was fashionable, long before it became necessary for dealers to diversify, you did that. So I'm wondering if you'd share maybe some of the clues that, you and Great America saw as you moved into that, and how that could, potentially help customers on that side of the fence, but also in the Office Equipment channel.
It started a little bit before the 2008 financial collapse that happened on Wall Street. Great America is set up in silos. Like I mentioned, I've been in the IT silo. We have the construction and we have our copier silo. And sometimes that is a pejorative. I don't view it that way. Those are areas of expertise. And we were, hip deep in the copier channel. And we looked at the dealer as our customer, and we were really just trying to see what else can we do to help our customer. And so we are all really right here focused on what else can we do. Starts with the top from Tony Globich, our owner and chairman, just what can we do to help our customers? And, we were seeing the signs of print for sure at least slowing, probably decreasing. And, you know, IT was really becoming prevalent. Even back then, security was an issue. And we're going to talk a little more about security here in a little bit. But we just saw that IT was a much bigger share of wallet for the typical customer. So, you know, your typical print spend at a business is going to be 1%. IT is significantly more than that. So we saw the dollars, we saw the need for diversity. And again, thankful that we have leadership at Great America who is willing to make a bet and put their money where their mouth was. And we started Collaborants. And so it's been an interesting road. We've had to make some left turns and some right turns as we really perfected our offering. But I will tell you now, we are clipping away, and it's been a very exciting year. And there's not many businesses that have been able to say that during the pandemic. But it's been a testament to what we've built and how we are filling real needs with real channel partners.
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat. And, you know, certainly I'm not saying there's any silver linings to this, you know, pandemic, but I guess I am, right? That, you know, certain things that you'd already set the stage for, certain practices that you already put in place were so ready for dealers when they needed it most, right? So as it kind of came, so I'm sure you are very busy with that, you know, right now. And again, it's that vision of foresight. And I think what I got out of that too is that as an organization, you are pretty diversified, right? That, you know, that yes, I know you from the Copier channel, but certainly Great America has been in other places much longer. And that visibility you get when you're actually serving other customers, right? So it's just really neat today to see those kind of things coming together. I've talked about that as well, if you call it converged services or, you know, whatever you want to call it, right? That this idea that a lot of the things that we do, which we considered quote unquote managed print, is actually a managed service, just of a different kind, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, really neat. And, you know, the other thing I see in the space that's, you know, that's pretty awesome about this is that the dealers are really starting to embrace that. And the conversations I'm having years ago would have been, no, we're strictly a managed print house. And I don't really hear that much anymore, right? And the number of times that I hear people that are using Collaborants that are moving into more of these other kinds of managed services, you know, I think that's, you know, the pandemic, like I said, silver lining. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but, you know, certainly it's pushed us all to do a little more.
Exactly.
You know, for dealers in this pandemic, diversification is becoming a big topic, as I just talked about. And here's the rub, right? Here's where the difficulty comes in, as far as I see it. For those looking to get started, you know, what should they do, you know, to succeed, right? Because it is a different type of business. So maybe some advice that you would have for people that are getting started.
Right. There are many ways that dealers in the channel can diversify. Certainly managed IT is one. It is not the only one. Wes, when I just look at partners who we work with and the ones that I would consider best in class versus the ones who tend to struggle, there's a handful of things that I see. The ones who are really doing it well, first and foremost, the owner has made an absolute commitment to, we are going to do this, period. Offering financial support, but more importantly, their moral support and their moral leadership and their involvement. So let's just look at the print side of the business for a second. You take a typical size copier dealer, and if there's a 100 machine deal on the table, I can guarantee you that owner is involved, potentially going out on the sales calls, being involved in the pricing, being involved in the whole process. Now, they're not doing the deal, but they're rolling their sleeves up and they're involved. On the IT side of the business, when I see owners involved like that, going out on the big meetings, wanting to know separate P&L, holding accountability in the same way that they have accountability on the print side. Those are common themes that I see the people who are really succeeding in IT. Pick whatever you want, AV, unified communications, whichever area that you want to diversify in, do those things. Be involved, have a separate P&L, and hold people accountable. Sounds pretty basic and simple, but there are organizations that I see out there that aren't doing those things, and therefore they're struggling. They're just not doing that well.
Yeah, I like what you say about the involvement and also about the separate P&L, right? And you said, like you said, your background is finance, and this idea that when you have a separate P&L, you have a separate set of responsibilities to those numbers,
Yep.
right? Well, and hey, everyone, welcome back to the interview. As many of you that are astute might notice, Greg and I are actually wearing different wardrobes for this part of the interview. And it's not because we're trying to be cheeky, but the modern world that we live in, the internet, it went down pretty hard, eh, Greg?
Very hard.
I love it. And that's the modern world we live in. But what I also like about this format is that we get to come back and do it whenever we want. So before we actually lost internet and power or whatever was going on in the grand universe trying to slow us down, you were talking about some of these fundamentals that, you know, dealers really should pay attention to if they're looking to diversify. And so I think moving beyond the fundamentals, looking towards the future, right? Because I'm starting to see a lot of things out there that I would have never thought were important before, right? Some of these trends that are changing. I put out a poll last week, kind of, you know, trying to ask my LinkedIn community what kind of things they were seeing, you know, which areas they should be focusing on. And it's been like a roller coaster ride. At the beginning, it was one, you know, thing, and then 2 days later, it was another thing, depending on who's submitting, right? So just want to get your take. You're in that space, you're in that part of the world. You know, what are some of the future trends that you're seeing that dealers need to pay attention to that maybe just aren't the usual suspects like managed IT, et cetera?
So it's interesting, Wes. As you know, I'm planning to do a presentation for your top 100, and it's on diversification. I went to my team members. I'm like, just throw everything against the wall that you've heard a dealer doing to diversify. It's a pretty robust list, and I'm looking forward to going through that with your audience on that webinar. But the thing that's a little interesting when I even just look at collaborants. So Wes, as long as security has been in the headlines, I'm a little surprised at how few of our partners really sell our full security offering to most of their clients. It's actually flipped. They sell most of our security just to a small percentage. And that's a bit alarming because it's a problem that dealers can solve for their end users. And so I still see that there is opportunity in security. And I'm talking about, you know, system security. The other piece that goes along with that I think dealers are doing a good job at, some of them, is physical security, because they do go hand in hand. There's monitoring that goes along with that. And when you think about it, there's a lot of hardware. There's a lot of installation. Dealers are really good at that stuff. And so, you know, putting in cameras, putting in sensors. So that to me is a very logical extension. If you're doing managed IT today, if you're an MSSP, which Collaborants is, and you're providing those security offerings, physical security, again, it's part of securing an environment. And so that to me is something that you can get into. Again, you got to treat that like a different business, separate P&L, separate teams, because the technologies are different. The way you sell it is a little bit different, but it still is something that would be a cohesive grabbing of wallet share for your customers. And so that to me is very logical extension. There's a lot of other ancillary things that we could pick on, but to me, those are the things that are, if I'm an owner of a medium-sized business, those things should concern me, and the dealers can go solve those problems.
I love it. And, you know, although sometimes we put a distinction between physical and virtual security, at the end of the day, it's securing company assets, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
if that's a physical asset, something they can lose, or if that's a digital asset, you know, that still has value, right?
From the customer's perspective, they don't make the distinction in their mind. Oh, this is physical security and this is IT security and this is managed IT. They just want stuff to work and they want to be secure. And so it's your job as the dealer to go offer that comfort and offer that solution to them.
Yeah, I've got a good friend who's been in the business for a long time. And many years ago, he started doing security services, virtual security services. And at that time, I can remember we were at a conference and we were sitting down. I said, "Well, how's it going?" And he goes, "Oh, so it's the hardest thing in the world to sell, right? Like, until people are bitten, they don't seem to want to actually, take it seriously." Fast forward, I interviewed him for something else a couple of weeks ago and said, "How's the security side of your business going?" He said, "Gangbusters," right?
Mhm.
Like, it's just night and day, the appetite that people have right now for
Yeah.
those security offerings versus what they were, even a few short years ago, right?
Yeah, and I am sympathetic to the fact that, I mean, if you go to the Collaborant's website and look at our security offering, there's a lot there. And there, all those pieces of the puzzle solve the problem. And it is difficult to learn that and to understand, not doing a feature sale and just dumping, oh, we have endpoint security. Well, who cares? But knowing what business problem you're solving and connecting the dots, that is difficult. And I do empathize with that. But the sooner you get good at selling that, you're going to be able to differentiate from all the people who sell it poorly. And I'm sure your friend is reaping some of those benefits because he's done it long enough and he knows those value statements. He can connect the dots on solving problems or mitigating risks that other people aren't connecting those dots. And that's where you get the 250 a seat, the 300 a seat, because you're showing the value of what you're protecting that business from.
Yeah, and you learn it too, right? And I do know that was part of our conversation, was just the fact that they're so much more comfortable now selling security, right?
Mhm.
Because Greg, I don't know if you remember in the early days of Managed Print, when we were working together and just trying to get dealers to install a data collection agent. They said, no, IT people won't let me. And it's not that IT people wouldn't let them. It's just they didn't understand how to sell that piece of their
Exactly.
proposition. And I got to feel that security has got to be the same way, that there's just things that you'll learn over time. You'll, hear it enough times speaking with other customers that you'll get good at delivering the message, right?
Well, sure. And you look at managed IT, everybody has an agent running that is pinging every IP address on their network. And so, those days are long gone. And I remember those very well. But it's a different world today. And we all live it all the time, in just whether it's our personal life or our corporate lives. That's just an expectation, and security has to get beefed up around it for very obvious reasons, but the technology does exist so that you can do that in a safe way.
Well, that's great. And I certainly encourage people to reach out to you to learn more about that. Because
Yeah,
again, every time I watch the news every single day, these security woes are not going away, right?
no,
And
no.
it's incredible. Yeah, I sit on a managed services, like an MSP group chat every Thursday, similar to our,
Mhm.
top 100, right? And of course, with this Java vulnerability that's been dancing around, in the last week or so,
Mhm.
they were scrambling to, take care of that and,
Sure.
deal with it and, learn what it was all about and everything else. But every time I'm on a call with these MSPs, I guarantee you, Greg, security is a daily topic, right? They don't have to
Mhm.
talk about it every day, but they do, because something else happens, and then they
Sure.
share insights on how they're dealing with it, right? So
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
dealers out there, I totally see that.
Yeah. No, we had to respond to that. I mean, we took our server down for a period of time. We've got very good partners that we work with, and we were in, constant communication with them, and they were testing and and determined that we were safe, and lit it back up. In many ways, it was good that it happened on a Friday, and we had the weekend to work on it, so there wasn't significant interruption, or a lot of parts of our operation still weren't affected by it. But again, we're in the business of
Right.
of that, and so we live it every day, just like the dealers do, just like the end users do. And it's real, and you have to be on top of it, and you have to have people in your four walls, or you hire somebody that can help you navigate through that, because it's scary, and it's a mystery to a lot of people. And you just have to have processes in place, tools in place to mitigate those risks.
Well, I love what you're saying though too. I had no idea. Like when you were saying, 250 to $300, is that right? Like a seat, or some of the attainable sort of
Oh,
revenue streams?
if you're selling a full security offering, I mean, full managed service, top to bottom security, penetration testing, user awareness training. Yeah, I mean, we see that. We see that regularly. And it can be in Manhattan, and it can be in, Hayes, Kansas. And people sometimes scratch their head. They're like, no way. Well, no, you don't get that on every one.
Right.
But if you have an end user who their existence depends on secure networks and having systems up all the time, they will pay that. And the top performing MSPs, I mean, we look at the service leadership numbers on a regular basis, and we see people getting those numbers all across the United States.
Well, it's amazing because one of the things that, we've always done is as we start to transition in the print world into more sort of flat rate offerings or other things, looking at this, per seat or per user charge, right? And I think typically on the print side, it's like $24 to $27 a user.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty big revenue increase if dealers can diversify and get them paying that.
Just think about it and just fold that into your managed service offering. Why can't you fold in the print? Again, $27 a seat when you are at $250. Sure, it's a bump, but relatively speaking, it's not that big of a bump. And now you're folding in another part of their business that they don't have to worry about.
Yeah, and I think that number has obviously gone down with the pandemic too, right? So it could be anywhere from $14 to $20 per user is whatever some people saying. So, again, as part of that managed services offering, and another friend of mine, Jeff Bendix, he actually does that. He leads with security all the time now, folds in the managed services, and then prints just a by the way sale. It's like, well, by the way, here's what we'll charge you for the printers.
Good for him.
Yeah, I love it. By the way, sales are my absolute favorite.
Would you like fries with that? So
yeah. Listen, if you had one piece of advice, I know that, we've talked about a lot of different pieces of advice, but if there was just one fundamental thing that we would throw out there to dealers, what would that be?
It's going to go back to what I started with because I'm passionate about this. Pick one area. What do you want to add to your business? Have strategy meetings, bring people in to help you vet through the process. Treat it just like you're starting a brand new business, and then go and do that, right? But don't just, hey, let's do this, give it to Bob, let Bob run with it, see how he does. You're going to be investing money no matter what route you go, whether you go buy a company, whether you start it up on your own, whether you partner with a company like Collaborants. I don't care which route you go, you're going to be spending money. So pretend you're starting a brand new business and go at it that way. And there's people that will help you with that. We can help with that. We've got people that we have our Pass Share group at Great America. That's part of their offering. They walk you through strategic decisioning that you need to do. And so whether it's Pass Share or other organizations, a lot of EOS operations out there. Pick that area and attack it.
Well, that's wonderful. And I appreciate that. And yes, treating it as a separate business because it really is, right?
It is.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough, Greg, for sharing your expertise once again, and looking forward to having you join the Top 100 group in January. And for all of our listeners out there and for all of our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in for more educational content at Tiger Paw Software. While you're here, visit some of the other blogs that we posted, listen in some of the other podcasts, watch some of the other videos. And remember, until next time, keep learning.